In today's episode of Locked On Oilers, we talk about the top two prospects in the Edmonton Oilers organization, and in the final segment of today's show, we remember Ben Stelter. Let's get into it.
You're Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to the Locked On Oilers podcast. I'm your host and former Oilers game day producer, Brett Holden. On today's episode, we will finish that top 10 list of the Edmonton Oilers prospects within the organization with number 2 and number 1. And finally, in the final segment of today's episode, we will be remembering Edmonton Oilers superfan, number 1 fan, and genuinely somebody who brought this city together like we haven't seen in a very long time, Edmonton Oilers fan Ben Stelter. So we will talk about that in a little bit, but what Ben would want is to hear about his favorite Edmonton Oilers team, well, his favorite team in the NHL, and that is the Edmonton Oilers. So we're going to start off with the second best prospect in the Edmonton Oilers organization right now. Thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you find your podcast. Alrighty, the number 2 prospect in the Edmonton Oilers organization is, and we put it up to you guys, well, not really, I had my list, but I wanted to see where you would have put these last 2 prospects, and here it is. The second best prospect in the Edmonton Oilers organization is Dylan Holloway. Yes, Dylan Holloway is number 2 for me for the Edmonton Oilers, and there's a couple reasons why. That doesn't mean he shouldn't be number 1. That's not a knock, obviously, on Dylan Holloway, because realistically, and one of the reasons why I have Dylan Holloway at number 2 is because he's probably going to be on the team next year. That's not really something out of the realm for Dylan Holloway, realistically. A lot of people, including myself, wanted Dylan Holloway to play more in the playoffs last year, especially after seeing Zach Kassian and Josh Archibald in the playoffs. But anyways, especially after the 5 minutes, quote unquote, that he played in game 4 of the Western Conference Finals, it gave a lot of Edmonton Oilers fans some sort of excitement to see Dylan Holloway. Obviously, Dylan Holloway has been in the organization since 2020. He was the Edmonton Oilers' 14th overall selection. Ooh, I just smacked the microphone. I'm sorry, audio listeners. He was selected 14th overall by the Edmonton Oilers in 2020, and he was one of those guys that not a lot of people were a big fan of when the Oilers selected him. He was coming out of the AJHL with the Okotoks Oilers, and I know a lot of people aren't big fans of the AJHL for whatever reason. Clearly people who haven't watched the AJHL, because, by the way, the best defenseman in the NHL kind of came out of the AJHL. His name's Cale Makar, if you ever heard of him. But in that same year, one of the similar years, Dylan Holloway was playing for the Okotoks Oilers down in Okotoks, obviously, and he had a fantastic year in the AJ. 53 games played, 40 goals, 48 assists, 88 points. Need I say more? A fantastic season for him, and we talked about how Carter Savoy did in the AJHL previous episodes, but he did almost just as well down there in the Southern Division in the AJHL. Then he decided to take the university route, or college route, I guess, and go down to the University of Wisconsin, played with a very, very good team down there, which also had guys like Cole Caulfield was on that team too. Very good team down there as well. In his first year, kind of a tough year, 35 games played, 8 goals, 9 assists, 17 points. And then once he got his feet wet down there, it was a tough season because that was also the COVID year. Stuff started to hit and just really affected a lot of things. But then the following year, the University of Wisconsin and the NCAA in general really got their stuff going and really started to figure it out, including Dylan Holloway, who that year in 23 games had 11 goals, 24 assists, good for 35 points. If I'm not mistaken, he was also one of the Hobie Baker finalists as well for that trophy. Just a very solid season. The thing is that he had to go for surgery after that season on a tough, I believe it was his wrist injury, a similar injury that kept Kyler Yamamoto out early in his career as well. He then went to Bakersfield and played a little bit under Jay Woodcroft before Woody was brought up to the big club and Coach Chalk had taken over down there in Bakersfield. But in Bakersfield, he did get 33 games in, 8 goals, 14 assists, 22 points. So he does have the ability to produce offensively, but it's really what Dylan Holloway does off the score sheet that really brings attention to why a lot of teams and why a lot of people really like Dylan Holloway. Dylan Holloway is a fantastic skater. And that's what the Edmonton Oilers like in a lot of players. They like to have a guy who is fast, who is going to play. I mean, realistically, you hear how the Edmonton Oilers talk about the team they want to construct, and it's always a team that can skate fast and play hard. And that is what Dylan Holloway does. If you go onto the Elite Prospects page of Dylan Holloway, the first pop-up that comes up is an article from Elite Prospects saying why Dylan Holloway is a perfect match for the Edmonton Oilers. But why is he number 2 for me? Well, because Dylan Holloway is going to be playing on that third line with Ryan McLeod, and he's not really going to be producing top 6 numbers or top prospect numbers in the NHL. At least not right now, because realistically, you're going to have the Edmonton Oilers' first line with Connor McDavid and Evander Kane, and you're probably going to have a second line, of Leon Draisaitl and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and then you mix up your wingers with Kyler Yamamoto and Zach Hyman wherever you want to put them. Doesn't really leave a great spot for Dylan Holloway in that lineup, and that is why I have Dylan Holloway at number 2, because, again, he's going to be playing with Ryan McLeod, which I think is a fantastic fit for him. A line of Holloway, McLeod, and Jesse Puljujärvi, I think will be a fantastic line, I cannot wait to see that line in action. But that's a third line, at least for the Edmonton Oilers. And that is why he is my number 2 prospect. I'm excited to see what Dylan Holloway can do. I'm excited to see what he can bring to the Edmonton Oilers next year. I mean, we almost saw it last year in the playoffs, but we got 3 minutes of it. And basically, I believe 2 or 3 of his first few shifts in the NHL started off with a delayed penalty. Not on him, but like as he came out, there was a delayed penalty coming on. So then he's off. He was not going to play on the power play, not going to play on the penalty kill. You're just sitting there going, come on, kid, come on. But either way, Dylan Holloway is your number 2 best prospect in the Edmonton Oilers organization. So if it's not Dylan Holloway, who is it? Well, we will get to that in just a second, but first, I want to tell you about our partners over at BetOnline. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Naturally, they always get new flavors. Are you ready for this? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. Yes, that's right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite, cookie dough chunk puffs. They have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without actually having to make the cookie dough itself. Plus, it's healthy for you. Run to Built.com and snag a box for you and the family, or it makes a perfect treat, or you can actually find probably a pretty good hiding spot and just have them all for yourself. What's great about Built is that all their bars are made with collagen protein, which actually your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. Head to Built.com right now and use the promo code LOCKED15, that is locked 15, to get 15% off your next order. That is locked 15 to get 15% off your next order at Built.com. already. As I reach over for my notes for the Edmonton Oilers' number one prospect within the organization, and well, if you've done any process of elimination, the best prospect in the Edmonton Oilers organization is Philip Broberg. This guy is Oscar Klefbom 2.0. I said it. I said it. I said it. Philip Broberg is the void that Oscar Klefbom has left for the Edmonton Oilers. Am I getting a little ahead of myself? Maybe. Hopefully not. But you just see so much of Oscar Klefbom in Philip Broberg. You can just tell that Broberg will be a natural leader for the Edmonton Oilers. A natural leader for the defensive core as well. He's a big lad and he's getting bigger. If you've seen some of the offseason photos of, I almost called him Philip Larson. Philip Broberg, quick shout out Philip Larson, by the way. If you've seen some of the offseason photos of Philip Broberg, oh my days. He looks like a young Oscar Klefbom. He does. Right now, elite prospects in the NHL have him sitting at 6'3", 203 pounds. He's only 21 years old. He could potentially get up to 6'4", maybe 6'5", maybe 6'5". But again, we've talked a lot about prospects getting bigger and that that affecting the foot speed, and that's not something you want with Philip Broberg. A fantastic skater, a smooth skater. He's a guy who can really command the back end and really look like I keep saying a leader, but that is what he looks like. He's somebody who just takes command of the ice when he's out there. He's an ice commander, is that what they're called? You can just feel his presence on the ice at all times. Even when he doesn't have the puck, even when there's not really a play around him, you know Philip Broberg's on the ice, and you know that 9 times out of 10, he's probably going to be making the right decision. Now, the interesting thing about Philip Broberg is that he hasn't really been too offensively engaged until his AHL season last season. Now, he is a two-way defenseman. A lot of people praise him for his ability to jump into the play if he needs to, his ability to shoot the puck, to be an offensive stalwart almost. But it didn't, I mean, again, we talk about European hockey and a lot of the ways there's stats that come out of it, and it isn't really fair to a lot of guys. But you take a look at the stats that Broberg was producing in the Swedish Elite League or Swedish Hockey League over the last couple of years, and you go, what do you mean? Starting off in 2019-2020, 45 games played. He had 1 goal, 7 assists, good for 8 points. Again, a young kid. He was a kid at this point playing against men in the SHL, so that also helps with that as well. The next season in 2020-2021, 44 games played, 3 goals, 10 assists, 13 points, which was his career high up until this year. And then he came into North America, started off with the Bakersfield Condors. Kind of an up and down really season for Philip Broberg. He was kind of that, not necessarily taxi squad guy for the Oilers, but kind of. He was up and down whenever the Edmonton Oilers needed him. When he was with the Oilers, he did get 23 games, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. Simple, just again, kind of used whenever he needed to. But then when he got the big minutes in Bakersfield, he delivered. He delivered in a way that he hadn't in his entire career, in his first year in Bakersfield. In 31 games played in Baco, Philip Broberg had 4 goals, 19 assists, good for 23 points. 10 more points. Even the Dryer's going, yes, let's go. 10 more points than he's had than his career high before. And that was in 13 less games. Maybe, just maybe, the kid is starting to figure it out in the North American game. Jay Woodcroft and Dave Manson have been very vocal on the growth of Philip Broberg. A lot of people have said that he is going to be a very good defenseman in the NHL, a very good defenseman. And that's coming from a guy who has seen him work down in Bakersfield, who has seen him work up in the NHL as well, with the practices, with playing with the big club. Philip Broberg can be what the Edmonton Oilers are missing on the back end without Oscar Klefbom. Now, I know a lot of people, I hold Oscar Klefbom to a very high regard. I miss Oscar Klefbom every single day. But if the Edmonton Oilers could get production or just, and not even production, because Oscar Klefbom wasn't exactly the most offensive defenseman at times. Yes, he ran the Edmonton Oilers power play at times, but that was also a time the Edmonton Oilers didn't really have anyone else to run the power play, unless you wanted like Keith Ollie. Quick shout out Keith Ollie as well, to run that power play. That was I pulled that name out of nowhere for a matter of fact. But Philip Broberg could be a guy who you can throw out there on the power play, but you can throw out there on the penalty kill, 4-on-4, 5-on-5, 4-on-3, 3-on-3 at any point, and you'd feel comfortable just with the composure and the poise that the kid has. And that is why Philip Broberg is the number one prospect for the Edmonton Oilers, because this kid can be something special. I'm excited about it. That will do it for our top 10 prospects in the Edmonton Oilers organization. Just to recap, as I pull up my entire list once more, at number 10, the Edmonton Oilers' 10th best prospect, Raphael Lavoie. At number 9, Tyler Tullio. Number 8, Dmitry Samorukov. Number 7, Carter Savoy. Number 6, Luka Munzenberger, who you can watch in the World Juniors right now for Germany. Number 5, Matvei Petrov. Number 4, Reed Schaefer. Number 3, Xavier Bourgault, or as a lot of people like to say in the comments, Xavier Bourgault. Number 2, Dylan Holloway. And number 1, Philip Broberg. Just missing the list as well, a couple of honorable mentions. A guy who might make the team this year, Vincent Desharnais. A guy who I think should make a team next year, Markus Niemelainen. Maxime, the name that I keep messing up, Berezhkin. Maxime Berezhkin. Make sure you get on me for that, because he's a prospect that I don't know a lot about. But a lot of people I've seen put him in the top 10 of their list for the Edmonton Oilers prospects. So let me know more about Berezhkin. And the final name that did miss the list, and finally a goaltender for the Edmonton Oilers, is Ryan Fanti. Those are the 14 names to keep an eye on for the Edmonton Oilers in their organization for the future. The Edmonton Oilers have a very, very, very underrated prospect pool. That is where we will call the prospect talk and the hockey talk in general today. Next, I just want to, in this final segment for today, I want to talk about Ben Stelter. Ben Stelter passed away last week, a young kid. Obviously, if you're an Edmonton Oilers fan, you know Ben Stelter. I don't need to give him an introduction. What I want to say about Ben Stelter, and just in a sense of remembrance of Ben Stelter, it was tough for me to do this episode today. This was an episode, starting to already lose my composure. Ben Stelter, it was tough for me to do this episode. It was tough for me. That's why I called the episode on Friday, because it didn't feel right to talk about hockey. What Ben Stelter did for the community, for the Edmonton Oilers, for children in the future who are going to have to deal with this disgusting disease of cancer. And to always have the toughness to smile through it, to laugh through it, to always be the light in the room, was felt throughout the community, throughout the city, throughout the dressing room. throughout the hearts of all Edmontonians, of all hockey fans. This is what hockey is about. To bring people together no matter what's going on. To always have the smile, to have the love, to have the passion for the sport, for the game, for the team, for whatever it may be. Ben Stelter was there. Ben Stelter was the embodiment of the love and passion of the game and the love and passion of life. You saw how much every single Edmonton Oiler, no matter what, whenever Ben was in the building, whenever Ben was there down the tunnel, would always take a moment, give him a fist bump, and thank him. Thank him for what he's doing. Professional hockey players going to him and thanking him for what he's doing. My deepest condolences to Ben's family, to Mike and his entire family, his kids, his wife, his family, everybody. I can't imagine what you're going through. But you have an entire city with you, no matter what. This is what hockey is about. And the reason why I pushed through this episode is because, well, realistically, what Ben would have wanted would be to find out more about his favorite team, the Edmonton Oilers. And I have the opportunity to do that every day because of passionate people like Ben. So thank you, Ben, for everything you have done for this city, for the team, for the community, for people that never even met you, like myself, like basically a lot of the city that have not been able to meet you, but have meant so much to them because they remind them of the passion that they have for this team and why they cheer for this team. Thank you, Ben. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to Locked On Oilers. I will be back tomorrow. I will be back on Wednesday, and I will be back on Friday. No episode on Thursday. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope you take advantage of it because life is a precious thing. All the best, and play La Bamba, baby.